Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, everyone. My name is Bret, and sometimes I wear a Santa hat. And welcome to Holiday Hot Takes. I asked you guys for your Nerf hobby hot takes, and you delivered. I'm going to be diving into your comments and see what's hot and what's not. You may disagree with some of these opinions, and that's okay. I've read through some of these, and I have some strong feelings towards some, and, well, some lukewarm feelings towards others. And you may disagree with my opinions too. As always, this is my channel. As we read through these vast and diverse opinions, I encourage you to keep an open mind and grab yourself a nice warm beverage during these cold, wintry days. Is this hot chocolate or is this coffee? Or is this alcoholic? I'm joking. And let's jump into it with our top rated comments to start. From Ri-Fi Channel, we need more gimmicks on blasters. True. Is it a hot take though? I don't know if that's too hot, but I 100% agree. Basically, you can't have Nerf without some gimmicky blasters. I think without those, it kind of falls apart and we become a little bit too much more like airsoft or paintball. Without the gimmicks, what are we? Soda Popper Animations. Nerf Vortex discs are criminally underrated and underutilized. That's kind of a hot take, and here's why. Availability. I don't think that there are too many people who run around saying this and are like, oh my gosh, because people hate Vortex, that's why Vortex isn't being used. I think it has something to do with the fact that Vortex hasn't been made for what, like a decade now? Again, even after they re-released some VTX lines of new Vortex discs. Yeah, I think people are a little bit more careful with when they do actually bring out Vortex. I don't know if they're underrated per se, but sure, what the heck, they're underutilized, use more Vortex. From Nate Benson, high performance does not equal more fun. That's a big reason I gravitated towards Nerf over Airsoft originally. And from Potato the Omnipotent Spud, very nice name, not everything needs to be an ultra competitive 200 plus FPS to be a good blaster. The most important part of Nerf is that it's fun. Sorry guys, these are not hot takes, but they are, of course, true. I believe that it's important to remember that high performance, high power, blah, 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 does not fully define Nerf. Some people need a reminder, but overall, I think we get that that is true. Foam Battalion 7652, the Busby Destiny is better than the Nerf Mag Strike. Now that's a hot take. I don't know if I disagree. I think I might agree with this one actually. Busby Destiny is one that I kind of skipped over. I saw a lot of people using it when it did first come out, and I saw a lot of reviews and mods, and the Mag Strike just happened to be the one that I grew up more with. So my initial lean would be towards the Mag Strike. However, if I look at it overall, I can see some pretty strong advantages to the Busby Destiny, possibly one of their strongest offerings that proved that Busby was pretty much the kings of air-powered blasters when they really put their mind to it. At least once, Nerf wasn't willing to do much of it, well, for reasons. Roth4766, Nerf Nitro should be resurrected. Should it? That's a hot take. I don't know if we need more Nerf Nitro. What am I saying? Of course we need more Nerf Nitro. Bring back the cars. Gotta use them in a game. But like in all seriousness, I can see the fun and the appeal, but I guess I never really saw them latch on to their target audience. Nerf Nitro kind of just existed as a meme for the actual enthusiasts, like, oh my gosh, this is a thing now, I guess we should try something out with it. Did they really compete with Hot Wheels? Was that their goal? I think Mattel won that one before the game even started, so you know what? Sure, that's a hot take. Bring back Nerf Nitro, even though very few people are asking for it. Bring back the cars. Silly Seeker Productions, I believe Busby creates the best blasters. Well, anytime someone says that, it's going to be a hot take, so go on. Not from a performance standpoint, of course, but purely from a fun of shooting experience with the plethora of shell-ejecting shotguns, bolt-action rifles, oversized behemoths like the Alpha Auto and Tetra Shot, and their lever actions, old Rapid Fire Sentinel, and now Easy Fire. I think they truly make toy blasters, and the prices can't be beat. All right, in the end there, they truly do make toy blasters. There is no doubt, no debate that Busby blasters do look like toys. Very rarely do we find ourselves looking at a Busby blaster and being like, That's a little too realistic, I would say. I think every company can bring out their most fun examples, and when it comes to Nerf, they just have a much greater catalog. So while Busby, I'm sure, has a lot of great offerings, I should know, I've played with many of them, Nerf, I think, can always counter that with something that's equally as silly. My opinion, of course, this is, one opinion versus another, just like I think X-Shot can bring out some silly stuff. Even old Dart Zone. Modern Dart Zone, kind of, but like old Dart Zone had some really weird ones too. So I can see where the argument would come for Busby, for sure, but then like, let's throw Boomco in the mix. But definitely one of Busby's strong suits. From the Norseman, Doomlands is one of the worst Nerf series there was. Almost all of the blasters either jammed or are just unusable, and the ones that are good are just clones of a better blaster like the Desolator, a worse Strife clone because of a horrible stock and bad grip. Yeah, that's a hot take, but he's out of line, but he's right. Doomlands is really unfortunate. There were some really cool designs in that series, and as mentioned, yes, many of them did have some pretty substantial flaws, or just like you looked at it and then you saw Zombie Strike and you're like, wait, why is this separate? Can't we just like combine the two? Or in that case, can't you just move the Doomlands into Zombie Strike? Like you kind of see what they're going for, but it was just too similar, other than a coat of paint. So, arguments for other lines, sure, poor Doomlands. Not all blasters need triggers to be good. Yeah, I agree. Not sure if it's a hot take, but yeah, I agree. People need to realize that high FPS is an option, not a necessity. I'm tired of people saying how much they want the normal FPS back. There's a bit of a hot take there. Normal FPS, we're talking 70 FPS, the unofficial hobby standard, right? I think there's still plenty of normal power on store shelves, and nowadays we just have so much more insight into high FPS because they exist online. So it's true, I don't think normal FPS has gone anywhere, but I do think that overall we have seen a slight increase, where that 70 FPS unofficial standard has gone up just a little bit, even Nerf recognizes this, but at the same time we've seen Nerf put out like Elite Junior, something that is in fact lower powered than the original FPS par. People are always going to complain, that's my takeaway. Hasidits223, nailed it. Hot take, the Vulcan is one of the best machine guns Nerf ever created. One of or the best? I think if you say one of the best, then that's pretty easy, that's not very hot. If you say it's the best machine gun that Nerf's ever created, what is a machine gun? I think in terms of like belt fed, the Vulcan is just iconic and it cannot be beat by any other company's attempts there. That's the hot take you can go with. Stock configuration with the box and just 25 rounds of like darts, I think it fed just fine. Once you start modifying those chains or do anything else to the Vulcan's internals, that's when you really would have problems. But in its like base configuration, God, that thing is just so much fun. I wish, I long for the days when we can go back and the Vulcan was actually a scary presence on the field. And nowadays, I mean, you look at a like stock Vulcan, you'd be like, okay. Classic design though, gotta love it. From Fast Hippie, Bert content is clearly superior to Man with Hat content. This is a cold take. Everyone tells me this. Where's Bert? Bring the Bert videos back. Blah, blah, blah. I'm not offended by this. I just think it's very funny when you create a separate character or personality and that becomes more popular than some of your other stuff. Station 7 The Door. Hot take. Beret is the Topher Grace of Nerf. Also, Brett, I want you to sing Rainbow Connection for the holiday special on account of your voice is a little bit like Kermit. Let's go. Man, I'm being stumped on this one. Topher Grace is a good thing, right? I guess that's a hot take because someone's gonna strongly disagree. Yes, let's go with yes. Thank you, so honored to hear that. The Kermit thing though. What? You think I sound like Kermit the Frog? I'm going to have to say things about this. Also, no, I don't take requests, so I'm not singing your song. Kermit does what Kermit wants. I'm not even wearing green, I'm wearing red today. From Nefomp, I've never liked the long shot. I think it's ugly and not terribly ergonomic. Ooh, a very hot take. Long shot disrespect, and I have to assume this is the Nerf long shot, otherwise you probably would have said X-Shot long shot. Don't you love that? Isn't that great when companies do that? Respect, come on X-Shot, what are you doing? Be nice to Nerf. I know, I'm dodging the question, or the hot take. It's, okay. I can see why someone might not like the long shot's ergonomics. I never had a huge problem with them. like the handle. You can see how the bipod might be a little discomforting if you're not removing it. It's also bolt action, it's kind of weird. You know, if you have a strong feeling about the long shot's ergonomics, that's fine. I don't have a huge problem with it, so you can hate on the long shot. Good news, it's not on store shelves right now, so you don't have to worry about that. Nishi501, HPA is amazing, and I don't know what happened to it. Was still here. It's not gone. I don't think saying HPA is amazing or like powerful or impressive is a hot take, but like when people say, we need more HPA, there's your hot take, and I have some sad news for you. It's very simple. It's just illegal at a lot of venues and a lot of places to play at. Like, plenty of people experiment with HPA, but I think there's been a stronger development of other types of blasters that you can actually use, or like more people can try out themselves, that isn't as like cost prohibitive and as just explicitly dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. And then, yeah, you can't really bring it anywhere to show it off, at least like around here. It's just kind of a no-no. Plenty of places you can. Obviously, HPA is a big part of like paintball. Plenty of airsoft guns as well, I'm sure, use HPA. That shows my knowledge. But yeah, HPA and Nerf, at least in the States, hit or miss. And across the world, maybe it's a little bit more prevalent, but yeah, it really just depends on where you are. Benji J. Gee J. The inline clip feature needs to be introduced in official blasters. That's a hot take, and I agree with it. I think that's a really cool idea, and it's a shame that I haven't really seen any companies do that, right? Like having a dart behind another dart. Once you fire the first one, the next one's kind of ready to go, just like with a little flicking motion, maybe even a spring assistance in there. I mean, I think the argument of why companies might not try that is because you have to assume like maximum power when it's like filled all the way. So like that's gonna be your maximum, and then, you know, it's gonna work down to something that's significantly less powerful, and people might not like that. Smart ARs already have that problem or feature, depending on how you look at it. I agree though, I think that'd be a really cool thing to see on a modern blaster. Someone tell Hasbro. Galaga8779, Leonard triple shot is peak Nerf. Sure, I guess that's a hot take. Peak Nerf, we have to address that definition. Leonard, not Nerf, but yes, it fires foam darts, so I'm going to work with that assumption. That's the definition. Leonard triple shot is fun. Not very powerful with the 3 shots, but I know there's some classic mods to make the triple shot be, you know, 4 shots only, rotating turret. It's pretty cool. I think it's an iconic old style blaster. Peak Nerf, I think a lot of people would disagree with that, but iconic to time long past, yes. Still fun? Probably, but when you fire 3 shots out of it per rotation, not very powerful, so I'm sure modern audiences would be very underwhelmed. Ollie Barron's BI7HJ, X-Shot is a better brand than Nerf for fun blaster. Well, it's always going to be a hot take when you say this company is better than this company, and yes, if you're arguing for the sake of fun, it is incredibly subjective, and I have to bring up, which I'm probably going to be bringing up multiple times in these videos, we have so many blasters from Nerf that at a certain point when you say, oh, this company does this better, it's like Nerf probably has something to compete. It might not be currently available. Like when you say fun blasters, what's your definition of fun? I think Nerf always has a fun blaster in its queue. I can think of a lot of fun blasters from Nerf. I can think of a lot of fun blasters from X-Shot as well. So it's gonna be very subjective, gonna have to disagree, but very hot. Dr. Dude, I hate the current non-3D printed scene. Hate is a strong word. I want more niche roles in my high-performance Nerf games. Give me high-performance shotgun, high-performance sniper, high-performance heavy weapons. I need a 150 plus FPS minigun, whether it's something like the Crusher or a motorized blaster. I hate every blaster being 150 FPS, but it's a rifle slash pistol. There's not much difference between modern blasters, just whether they're springers or motorized. That's what Nerf used to be all about. Hate on Mega, Vortex, Mega XL, whatever, at least they added some variety. Okay, well, that last sentence, what's going on? We will not tolerate any hate on Vortex, Mega XL, or even Mega. So that's I mean, obviously this is a hot take, but gonna forget about that last one for a second because it doesn't really make sense here. Obviously they had variety. So you're saying that blasters that aren't 3D printed, that are high FPS, are always going to be like pump action springers or pistols, and that's what's getting bothersome? Maybe a little bit more than that, but you want more specialized stuff. Okay, fair enough. I guess the challenge with a high-performance shotgun is, see one of the previous comments, they have to kind of just design for the maximum potential performance. So it's like if you have just your regular plunger system and it's firing only one dart, what is that at? So obviously they have to bring it down when it's going to be firing multiple darts, but then that might not be your desired 150 FPS, right? Like they have to assume that you're going to be firing just one dart at a maximum, and maybe a company like Worker could take that on, but Hasbro ain't no way. And then you've got snipers, which I guess, 150 FPS high performance sniper, that exists? Have you looked? Or do you mean like you want 300 FPS snipers? Guess what, that exists too. So this is an interesting one. High performance heavy weapon, just, you're looking for everything but scaled up. I think they exist. I think in some cases the request is a little unreasonable, because then if you're really trying to classify stuff, like I want a high performance, like I want a machine gun that shoots 200 FPS, like 5 darts per second, that's actually kind of slow. But it's like, then is it really a machine gun for Nerf? I think that kind of falls apart. And I hate to say this, you might find more success in airsoft for these demands. You just got airsofted. From Mark, Nerf, and Tank Vlogs. Hot take, Boomco was underrated. They need to return. Boomco fans, rise up. And from ZeroBlade6599, we need Boomco back, but with upgraded power. The toughest darts that were the most accurate until the half dart came out. Didn't deform if you kept them loaded, could double stack in mags, and work great in disintegrating chains. I have to ask, did you see the early concept designs for Boomco Pro? Yeah, I think Boomco fans would definitely miss out on that one. So, was Boomco actually underrated? Hot take, of course. If you believe that, I do miss Boomco a little bit, but let's push back with the next one. Steel Rider 2266, Boomco was overrated. The only reason why people want it back is for nostalgia. So it's all hot takes, of course. I think any discontinued line is going to have fans and people who want it back. Yes, because of nostalgia. What once was, what is no longer. Now that people actually are aware of what existed prior, like, oh, I want that, because maybe for some people they got in and Boomco was already done. I don't think it was just nostalgia though. I think Boomco did offer some unique designs, and I think they really started to find their identity just a little bit too late. Some of their last stuff before the last year or so of just like, oh, Boomco still exists, were pretty cool, and those are blasters that I would love to see remade today, maybe even at the same performance level. And I think the Halo tie-ins were also pretty cool. I'd love to see them tackle some different IPs, or just their own. We're still waiting on you, Mattel. You can still activate the Boomco page when you want. Squig the Squig 1878. Trilogy/Shell Strike's shell system was underrated and underutilized. I love them so much. Hot or cold take? Well, I gotta say, at least there were 2 blasters that were released that used those shells, and you could actually buy them on store shelves. Yes, I'm of course talking about the Sledgefire. Let's make 1 blaster, and the shells you have to purchase from Hasbro's own website, not like the normal routes. You have to go above and beyond to find these extra shells. I agree, I don't think this is a super hot take that they should have continued designing more blasters that took those shells if they really were going to reinvent them. I mean, if they thought the Sledgefire was such a failure, or they didn't want to try shells again, then why did they, release a new blaster or 2 blasters that took those shells? Are they underrated though? That I'm not too sure about, even as someone who likes the occasional shell-fed blaster, including ones from Nerf. I see the fun, but the inconvenience factor is very high, and I'm sure that's why they didn't, attract the common consumer. Definitely Natox. The Nerf deploy isn't bad. Standard end strike performance and its magwell isn't that bad. And from Wesley Gebb, the Nerf deploy needs to be remade because the concept was peak. Grouping obviously, because deploy. Was the deploy overhated? In my opinion, yes, I 100% agree that the deploy was just kind of a standard performer. I bought the deploy when it first came out. Actually, I bought 2. I gifted 1 to a friend, so depending on how you feel about the deploy, you can say I was either a good friend or a very mischievous one. I think for some people, yes, the deploy bad meme is strong enough to make this a hot take. But yeah, if you looked at what was out at the time, it really wasn't that big of a deal when it worked as intended, I should say. The ones that I had access to worked just fine. Over the years, I've seen some other deploys that, when the, deploy feature doesn't work, then you're like, this sucks. If the performance is still the same, then whatever. I've also, granted, seen some deploy lemons on performance. So yes, quality control will always be the dictator of some negative reviews. I do think though, yes, the potential for the deploy funness, the features of the deploy nature is high. I'd love to see more blasters do that shrink down suitcase action where you hit a button and they expand. Or the idea of having the magwell go from one position to another, maybe even another. That's just unique and fun. Neon Vortex. Number 1, Hyper has serious potential at indoor games and it's criminally underutilized. Well, yes, Hyper, therefore hot take. I agree with the indoor use. I think that Hyper definitely has its footing in the indoor arenas, just like Rival has, but it's underutilized because no one likes it. And it's just annoying to clean up. It's more annoying than Rival. We can debate whether it's annoying enough or it really doesn't matter. Some people have strong opinions, but guess what? If your club outlaws it, then it doesn't even matter. Number 2, AccuRival's design and color scheme are horrible. Another hot take. I gotta say, some people really like it, some people hate it, so this is definitely a divisive one. Personally, I am okay with it. I think there are other designs in Rival that I prefer, but I can at least accept and appreciate that we have something different from Rival. It's not the exact same stuff. I know some people would be like, oh, just keep it the same, don't change it. It's okay, but I understand. And number 3, no event or organization ever since the inception of the hobby has matched the coolness, competitiveness, and global reach that Dart Tag had, and it needs to come back. Nerf ball ain't cutting it. Well, that's a cold take now, isn't it? Because yeah, obviously, I agree, and I wish Hasbro could commit without just seemingly overspending on everything and overthinking everything. I know that nowadays, yeah, it would be kind of weird to be like, well, we could just use the same Dart Tag rules and the vests, and I'm sure it'd be all fair and no one would complain. But like, if they control the event and they control the blasters, like, it doesn't matter what exists on the market when you come to the event. If they host it and you have to use their stuff, you don't have to worry about how powerful the blasters are at that point because they control all the variables. And yeah, you could keep it as simple as Dart Tag. Darts fly like 30 feet. Well, what if everyone's using those? It's fine. I have no problem. I'll play. I want to play. Treehouse Inc. BD. Boy, do I have a hot take. Everything modern from Nerf is junk besides the Moto Blitz. That is all the new waves missed the mark in a big way. Nerf just fell off. It does not feel the same. And the Battle Racer, amazing. Here's my hot take. Spelling and punctuation is important because I am having a hard time fully understanding that, other than the last part that says the Battle Racer is amazing. As someone who has ridden a Battle Racer, I think that is a very hot take because while it can be fun in a meme sense, I don't know if it actually is great. Though to be fair, I guess it is a little bit better than some of their other carts that they put out afterwards. Everything modern from Nerf is junk. I don't know if I agree with that. Yes, some of it is not as high quality as I would like, but other is still totally fine. The Mixer 5029. No one has been able to fill in the space Coop 772 left upon retirement. Surprised I only saw one of these. I know anytime it's brought up, a lot of people weigh in. That's definitely, I'm gonna say this is a hot take because should someone have replaced Coop 772? I mean, think about it. If everyone tried to copy the style exactly, then they would just be a Coop 772, stand-in, like, oh, you're trying to do what Coop did. You're trying to copy someone else's style. And I'm not saying that that necessarily is a bad thing. I mean, if the style and the format of his review videos were good, then we should aspire to create a similar kind of like flow to a review video. And guess what? Even Coop didn't do reviews perfectly. Blasphemy, dare I say it out loud. Like, there's always room for improvement, and there's always going to be different spins and twists on things. Coop excelled in doing some things, like in his own way, but there are definitely things that he could have improved on, and other people, I would argue, do even better. And why am I being so vague about those? Because I don't want certain people to get attacked just because I said this person does better than Coop. I'm not saying that I do, because I don't think I do. Except, I can give you game reports from when I use stuff out on the field against other people, and I don't think Coop was able to do that for years before he kind of called things quits. He did before, just didn't recently. Don't at me. So I think it's okay that no one officially replaced Coop's review style because it was just his going to one person for a review of a certain blaster is a little short-sighted. Everyone should kind of like look around and get a few different opinions. Someone's gonna like a blaster for one thing that appeals to them, and someone else is going to really hate it because of one just little feature that bugs them about everything. And it's your job to weigh through kind of those facts and opinions and then make the right choice. V1. Scripted Nerf wars are cool and are great for bringing people into the community as long as they are well done and are not content farm / childish videos. I agree. I think that might be a hot take for some people, but I wish it wasn't so hot. I think that many people will ignore the fact that some of these channels that do scripted gameplay, let's say just the obvious ones like Aaron Esser, PDK Films, like yes, there's obviously a very different style to those videos. There's a very different production level. And yes, sometimes you'll see things that no one would ever use in their right mind, and you see them working perfectly because they took a few takes and they got the shot that they wanted. But at the same time, it exposes people who would never be finding Nerf to Nerf, and I think that's a great thing. Yes, they will learn which blasters are good and which ones are not. If they happen to just impulse buy one of those things, or they ask their parents to buy a certain blaster that ends up not being great, that is unfortunate. At the same time, their curiosity is piqued and they will then find better ones, whether it's just because they went to the store, see it on store shelves, or they start searching more for a better blaster, best Nerf guns of 2022, and then they're like, oh, hey, wait, what is this? Who's this? And they just fall down the rabbit hole if they really go that direction. So I think they create a good positive awareness, unless exactly they are just weird content farms that have no heart behind them and are very strange. Those exist. Be careful of those. You can respect the people who put effort into their work, but there are some other ones that are just, let's say, they are explicitly made for children, and they're disturbing even to me. Jabo9980. Nerf Ace of Spades is the best Nerf gun for Russian roulette. Hot take, blasphemy. The Nerf Maverick wants a word. I have not actually gotten to play with an Ace of Spades yet. What I have seen, I can see the argument for the Ace of Spades being a good Russian roulette style revolver. You know, you put one dart in and play with it responsibly. But the Maverick always worked. Like, yeah, you can, you don't even need to do the drop cylinder mod, like, or make it come out a little bit further. It still is enough. You can spin the Maverick pretty well, assuming it's not really, really old. Even the Spectre, I mean, you know, that's a 5-round capacity from 6. That one spins really well. I'm not a huge fan of the Spectre compared to the Maverick, but it's an option. There are so many other cylinder-fed blasters, not even from Nerf, that you could play that little game with. I don't know if you need to spend $50 just to get the most effective, accurate blaster for that game. Sofa Pop. Foam weapons like the Zombie Strike ones or N-Force were one of Nerf's greatest ideas. Each and every game having safe melee weapons would have been so fun. Not a hot take in my opinion, but absolutely correct. I think going back to classic Nerf foam is a great idea. If they had made more Nerf style weapons that, you know, kind of harken back to the original, like, oh, Nerf is a foam toy and it's safe, that's great. Obviously, as we got through the years, they became a little bit harder, like an N-Force sword is not as soft as the original Nerf ball, and it definitely doesn't do it all. But like, you know, they were fun, they were cool, they made some cool things, like the axe. They should have done more tie-ins with that stuff too. The Vendetta sword, yeah, I love my little like Stonewall sword and shield, which I don't have the shield, but I love the little dagger. That's like a great thing to use, and it's light enough where I can get away with sometimes tossing it, and no one's banned me yet. So 100% agree. They're not gonna do it, I don't think. Very sad. Extra reason, bolt and lever action is underrated. So is jolt action. Bolt and lever action, okay, this comes up a lot, I think. I don't know if they're underrated. Like, bolt action exists in so many things. Okay, maybe explicitly when people say bolt action, like realistic, sure. It isn't as prevalent. Is it underrated though? Maybe. That could be a hot take. Lever action is underrated. I think anyone who sees lever action is like, that's really cool. So I disagree. I don't think lever action is underrated. Jolt action. What? Do you know how many blasters from Nerf, from other companies, use that jolt action method of just a pull down, catch, and then fire? Nowadays, so many. So that's a hot take because it's completely wrong. That is not underrated. That is just so overdone at this point. It is very unoriginal. Your fox friend, Nerf needs to bring back Koosh. That's a very hot take because, like Koosh Vortex? You mean the brand that isn't under Nerf's umbrella? Can someone please correct me if I'm wrong? But they didn't make that, did they? I mean, we kind of put it into the same category, like we take Boomco and call it Nerf sometimes, and we take, you know, all the other brands and call it Nerf. So yeah, get on that, Hasbro. What are you doing? Bring back Koosh Vortex. Oni Armory. Paint on one side of the blaster is worse than no paint on the blaster at all. Ooh, that is a hot take. I'm not sure if I agree. I think in some cases, having at least paint on one side looks good to present, and that is worth something. But it is annoying. I'll fully agree that it's annoying when that happens, that they don't put paint on both sides. A lot of companies are now just using, like, you know, different pieces, and then those are painted, or they're different colors. So you don't actually end up needing as much paint because the blaster's kind of color pops from just different pieces assembled, and it looks the exact same on each side as a result. But I don't know, there's something about paints that can make things pop. I think some people will, yeah, ultimately agree or disagree with this one. From Zuru Longshot is overrated. Gee, I wonder if we're gonna get a comment speaking to that in the future. Rampage is greater than Alpha Trooper. Oh, here we go. Well, that's a hot take already, let's go. Better prime, smoothness and grip, side loading, more reliable feeding, and big drums don't get in the way on the prime. Sturdier internals. I think I have to disagree with this one. There's some good points by the end about, like, oh, the drum doesn't get in the way for, like, you know, some of those blasters comparatively, but, like, that's if you just use the drum. What about, like, regular stick magazines? Sturdier internals, I guess, like, technically, yeah, the Rampage came out after the Alpha Trooper, so the internals were better at that point. Asterisk, need source. But I'm gonna disagree overall. I don't think that the Rampage was better because people literally called it the Jam Page, and it was just notorious for that, like, first wave of elite blasters to be the most jam-worthy out of all of them. The Alpha Trooper, not saying it was perfect, but I don't recall it being, like, as bad comparatively. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm having a selective memory moment, but yeah, I don't know if I can agree with that one. That's definitely a hot take. From Delivery Man Dan, Nerf should make a blaster that uses green gas or CO2 for propulsion. Purely for the vine. Sounds like a cool gimmick, not gonna lie. What year is it? Doing it for the vine? I say that as a joke to people and they just roll their eyes at me. Do it for the vine. Yeah, go tell Hasbro's legal team, we're gonna do this for the vine. Oh my gosh. Well, this is a hot take for sure. It's never gonna happen, sorry. When it comes to a major company like Hasbro, not happening. Even for the vine. Bagel Guy 9495. Vortex discs are better than Mega XL darts. Woo! That is hot. That is a hot take. We are entering some Vortex and Mega XL discussions, but wow. And realize I have to choose a side on this one. I think, no matter what I say, someone's gonna be disappointed, but both can be thrown well on their own, like Vortex or Mega XL dart. Vortex is a little bit more unique and a little bit more durable just because of that plastic in the center versus a Mega XL dart, which you step on and it's kind of done. And that's what I'm going to say about that. Let's continue. The Cybermedic. We need more Bullpup, Mega XL, and Vortex blasters in the hobby. That's an odd combo. I get, okay, we need more Mega XL and Vortex blasters. Not a hot take, that's good. We need more Bullpup. That's a type of blaster, not a style of ammo. I think a lot of people say this. I don't think it's a very, like, hot take at this point. Like, always people are like, oh, make this Bullpup, you should do this Bullpup. We have plenty of Bullpup blasters that are coming out from, like, first-party companies. Have you checked your local Walmart or Target? Fast Hippie. Vortex is the best Frisbee-shaped ammo. Boomco is the best straw-type ammo. And ballistic balls are the worst Nerf ammo of all time. Sorry, ballistic balls, I still love you. That is a very hot take, especially because I know who's posting this, and yes, I'm sure it took a lot to say that third one. I'm going to say that, sure, when it comes to frisbee-shaped ammo, Vortex is best, cold take. Boomco is the best straw dart, cold take. Ballistic balls being the worst, just objectively overall, I don't think I agree with that at all. Have you heard of Hyper? Have you heard of Gel? I think that Gel is just a worst ammo type because it doesn't keep. You fire it once and it's gone. I think that's just bad. Nerf ammo specifically, yeah. I refuse to believe that ballistic balls are the worst Nerf ammo of all time. There has to be something worse than that. Yoda Buddy 2112. Don't know how hot of a take this is, but Hasbro needs to bring back Mega XL. There are too many blasters that do the exact same thing nowadays. I agree. I don't know how hot of a take this is, and also we're basing this on the assumption that Mega XL is just completely gone. I don't know if we've gotten official confirmation for that. I still see it as uncertain. The writing's kind of on the wall, and I'm not happy about it. Yeah, I do like what they did with Mega XL blasters, and I see room for more, but at the same time, because they're just big fat darts, the designs for those blasters were just scaled up, but they weren't super original, dare I say. Is that heresy? You got a front loader, 3-dart internal magazine, and 6-dart rotating turret cylinder. Dare I say that's doing the exact same thing that a lot of other Nerf blasters have already done. Bader Studio. Not gonna lie, I'd rather have a Mega XL blaster at a war than a half-length dart blaster. It's more fun in my opinion. I think overall this is kind of a cold take. It's really hard to compare these two because you need to be talking about a very specific game, because in some cases, yeah, always running Mega XL is going to be fun, but would you use Mega XL in a competition? Even I am not going to do that because I recognize that that's just somewhere you gotta use an actual competition blaster that's probably firing half darts. In general, yes, you can have both is the good news. You could actually, dare I say, you can have a blaster that fires both half darts and Mega XL. And Mega XL being far more fun than half darts is, again, just a very broad statement, and some people are going to agree with you on that for fun purposes, and other people are going to be like, no, actually, I like being able to hit my targets 200 feet away, and Mega XL usually doesn't do that. Oni Armory. The Nerf Secret Strike AS1 is a better Jolt than the Jolt. What the? That is definitely a hot take, and I strongly disagree with that. I think, for one, they called the Nerf Jolt a Jolt, and they called the Secret Strike a Secret Strike. So, game, set, and match. You can fire the Jolt so much faster. You can load a dart, prime, quick. The Secret Strike is pump, pump, pump. It's literally is supposed to be a secret thing. You pump, it's ready to go, and then you're gonna surprise someone, and it does take a minute to pump it back up again and put another dart in there. The Jolt basically spawned an entire genre of blasters when they started putting it out in mass production. You can't take that away. And Tran147. Stringers are more interesting than springers. Also, stringers should be called slingers instead, since they're basically slingshots / sling guns. Wow, that was really hard to say for some reason. And yes, that is a hot take. More interesting, of course, is very subjective. I think that springers maybe have just been done a lot more and they're a bit more reliable for companies to put on store shelves. Of course, Nerf themselves have put out blasters in the past that take an elastic cord. It's not just hobbyists doing it nowadays. The name change makes sense. Stringers to slingers. Am I saying something dirty? Why is it when I say that out loud, it feels like it's inappropriate? Slingers. Am I slinging something? That's not bad, right? I think everyone's just very picky about changing terms once they stick, unless they're have an underlying meaning that we didn't realize in the beginning. So I will welcome that challenge to the naming convention, but I don't know who you gotta talk to make it official. It's not me, I'm definitely not in charge of that, but I can pass it up to my higher-ups. From RJ Weirdo, petition for no more rocket launcher at Modern Airsoft. Dang, I don't do requests. Motion denied. Ed21, it's not Nerf or nothing anymore. Let's give a round of applause to the coldest take of the century. Yeah, if anyone actually thinks that, oh, Nerf is the only company out there and everyone else is just a copycat or, you know, trying to be like them and failing to do so because really Nerf is the only blaster company out there, then they are lying to themselves. They're uneducated, and that's okay because not everyone knows. Remember, you can politely educate people that other companies exist. You don't have to be like, actually, Nerf is not that great, and here's why. You can just show them other options, and at the same time, that's not going to stop Nerf from using that slogan. It's a good slogan. The Casual Gamer 18. Nerf N Series didn't offer anything exciting. It was just an underwhelming proprietary darts. We got N Series coming in, guys. Hot takes, here we go. Tom Ski 7633. Nerf N Series is only existing to make Hasbro desperate money. Proprietary darts and blasters along with new barrel lugs and stock connections are only there to make more money from kids. And Nelson K. Nelson. When N Series fails, will Hasbro finally understand its customers do not want any more new dart sizes, especially not DRM darts? Do you think Nerf Central realizes nearly all buyers just want to use backwards compatible darts, primarily elite and half sizes, in new blasters, and if there must be change, our top wishes are straight flying darts that are more durable? Relevance: the whole new N Series is the elephant in the room for what Nerf did in 2024. It dwarfs in scale the other newish 2024 thing, the Ergo Disaster additions to Nerf's Half Dart Pro line, the Torrent and Sender. So, I hear Hasbro's reasoning for N Series. I understand some of the execution, and depending on when this video is live, I've talked about N Series in other contexts as to why I think there's a good idea behind it, but yeah, I agree at this point that I just don't think we need a new dart to keep things safe, as they've said, or to improve accuracy. They've proved that we can improve accuracy without reinventing the dart. But I maintain that different ammo types are good, different ammo sizes are good too, but at this point, given what's already existed and what currently exists, we just need a really good reason for why something like N Series exists, why this weird, somewhat in the middle dart is supposed to be the new hotness and why it's supposed to be better. Mersure. The N1 dart is actually something that's good for Nerf, the brand. It means that Hasbro is no longer competing in a market that's actively difficult and hard for them to compete in. Okay, so it's hard for me to read that and not think, is this a backhanded compliment? But I kind of agree. And I said this before too, that, you know, if Nerf really wants to go all in on N Series and people are like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And they're like, no, N Series is the future. Well, then let them, because we've got other options on the shelf that continue to support what we like, arguably have been making better darts and better innovations. So if Nerf really thinks that that's their trajectory and they're going to start a revolution down the N1 dart route, okay, if other companies follow suit, that will be interesting, but it's really going to have to prove itself. And if other people don't buy it, then I don't think other companies are going to follow suit as well. Steven Tan 2754, I like the N1 darts. It's the blasters I have a problem with. They tend to jam. Now this is a hot one, and I find it very interesting because it seems like people usually focus on hating N Series overall, and then if you start asking questions, they'll be like, well, okay, I hate the blasters and the darts are okay, or I hate the darts and the blasters I'm indifferent to. I'll say this, I'm unimpressed by the darts, but I can see why someone might use them, and I can see how in some cases the darts are going to be fine to use, but I still have a hard time choosing that dart over anything else other than for the meme. The blasters, I can see some of them as unique. They just should have called it Elite Junior again. Just really commit to that and then say we're using this new dart type. I do agree though, some blasters just seem to be less kid-friendly, which is seemingly what N Series is designed to be for, reinventing the 8+ category, so that kind of fails their mission as well. So maybe I do lean more towards liking the darts than the blasters, and that's not necessarily high praise still. To Executioner 24, hot take, creators like Silly Butts, Captain Slug, G-Dop, Flygonial, etc. should go commercial. I'm talking Walmart, Target, and so forth. Well, that's a very hot take. What's stopping you guys? Hobby creators? Just do it! Don't let your dreams be dreams. You want to go sell your stuff at Walmart? Just walk over to Mr. Walmart and tell him to sell your stuff. Obviously, there are a lot of reasons why that can't happen overnight, and I'm going to assume that a lot of these creators would not want that to happen. Once you hand off your designs to something that's going to be distributing them, worldwide potentially, even just nationally, even just like on store shelves in one location, however that would happen, suddenly there's a lot more oversight. There's a lot more voices that you have to listen to. It's no longer just your operation. As soon as you start to expand, things get less and less in your control. The whole point of people being able to make stuff themselves and then sell it from their own warehouses, hobby shops, online stores, download my files so you can print it yourself, is like, hey, I designed this. This is my vision. No one else gets to touch it. I mean, granted, you probably want some people to give feedback before you officially release stuff, but in my opinion, that separation definitely needs to stay because it's what keeps the hobby stores as actually hobby stores and not just retail products. Now, I know we have had hobby designers do work for other companies, and that's okay too. But I think directly selling their stuff on store shelves without going through a process of designing through a company, that is like a step too far, and obviously that's just not how it works. Oni Armory. Murph is a good Nerf mascot for all ages and genders. And from Excelsior Time, we need to see more of Murph, the Nerf mascot. Do we need more Murph or less Murph? These are hot takes for sure because Murph is controversial. Was I too mean on Murph when Murph debuted to the world? Maybe. Did I see an industry plant of Nerf darts created to be a sentient being? Maybe. Do I regret my actions? Maybe. I wish I could meet Murph. I almost had a chance to at Comic-Con, but I think that Hasbro doesn't care at this point, so your opinions don't matter. I think Murph is just the latest in the sad tale of Nerf not being able to commit to anything. Like, oh, we made a mascot, made a big deal, drummed up some interest, and they used the costume sometimes. Doesn't look the most comfortable, and then they of course used the rendering of Murph in their commercials. I don't know if those are still being used with the most modern blasters from this year, if Murph just appears in commercials, but now they're doing collabs with other teams' mascots and other people, because I guess maybe Murph just didn't have the same pull, but then why did you make Murph in the first place? Blah, blah, blah. What are you thinking? Sentient pile of darts, is that good for all ages and genders? Sure, I have no problem with Murph. So yes, we do need more Murph. Where is Murph? Please find Murph. From Lil Big Young, the Nexus Pro X is the best, most complete overall platform in the hobby from a price, availability, and performance standpoint. This of course includes how customizable it is as well. Nexus Pro stands rise up. Now, on a similar note, Afterburn 819, Nexus Pro is the worst blaster to give to someone new to the hobby. The amount of jams I've seen with a loaned Nexus is immaculate. Now, both can be true at the same time. I'm not sure saying that the Nexus is a great hobby platform is a very hot take. I think people kind of just realize that the Nexus is a great value, and when it came out, it was pretty darn clear, especially now if you talk about the Nexus Pro X. It's a little bit more hot to say that it's the worst thing to give to a new person, but it's not completely out of line. Yes, there are worse blasters to give to new people, some homemades. You definitely need to know what you're doing. And honestly, there's some off the store shelf blasters from Nerf that you probably want to be careful of too. I have also seen people have some tough times using the Nexus Pro in stock form and having some issues. So just with what exists nowadays and how they're aging a little bit, depending on what Nexus Pro you're borrowing, they're not as smooth as they might be in the past, or the Nexus Pro X is just way more smooth to operate than the original Nexus Pro. Nexus Pro is still okay. Clickmaster 2.035, Dart Zone is not what it is hyped up to be. Ooh, what a hot take, but what company is hyped up to what people say it is? Also, I'm gonna need an example. What do you mean it's not hyped up? The darts, the blasters, the people? Calling out anyone specific? Let me know. Dead Man's Foam, Dirty D, Dart Zone, please put the chili darts back on shelves. They are high performance, full length bar. This is a request, not a hot take, and I am not in a position to fulfill this request. I think the hot take here would be that Dart Zone full lengths, the new ones, are inferior to the old ones. And that's a hot take that I agree with. So, like, yeah. Dart Zone, what the heck are you doing? Always making new darts, but you lost the plot. Keep the good ones. Audi S23. We need pro AEBs from Dart Zone. Do we? Do we, though? I guess that is a hot take. I don't know. Do you think Dart Zone would be in a good position to make them? Like, Dart Zone definitely has some issues when they go too big. They go home. Like, I think when they keep it simple, they do what they know, they usually come out all right. But when they try to shoot for the stars, they crash and burn sometimes, dare I say? Is that a hot take? Oh, speaking of AEBs, the Glassman. AEBs are the superior blasters if done right. Spider Giant. The new influx of AEBs is going to be the new metas. Storm, BK1, 2S, Wasp 77, and, despite my own experience, the inverted scales, I know. And from Shelton Shots, I believe Nerf AEB is the future. BK1S is an amazing blaster. So, I don't necessarily disagree. I can see how this might be a hot take for some others. I do think that over time, some of these AEBs, when they're really refined, are going to replace a lot of other blasters for like competition stuff, if that is something that people will keep playing. I think that they're just kind of poised to take that scene by storm. But of course, on the other hand, from All Epic 2592, all current AEBs that are available are not good and have major reliability problems. And from Acrodite, AEBs are overrated. Yeah, that's a hot take right there, yes. Again, if you could provide any examples of that, that would help. Yeah, automatic electronic blasters do seem to have some reliability issues. I think even those who embrace them already will note that they're not perfect, and everyone seems to have some unique quirks. Those who are definitely in the know are the best suited to fix them, but like overall, there's a significant cost and learning curve that seem to come with these thus far. My very cold take is that I don't want AEBs taking over completely. From Diet Co. Elite 2.0 does not deserve all the hate. For the average consumer, the blasters are perfectly fine. And from Feli Jishing, Elite 2.0 isn't actually that bad. The designs look cool and futuristic, and the grips aren't as bad as people say. Alright, Elite 2.0 supporters rise up. We're starting off with a hot take on a controversial blaster line. And you know what? I don't necessarily disagree. I was very much in a group of people outspoken about their initial release. I maintained that some of the blaster designs were pretty cool. The overall design, I did not hate it. What I didn't like was the quality of the plastic. Everything just felt like a downgrade from Elite. It was very obvious when you felt it, and that first wave of blasters was just noticeably problematic. You had the issues of significant cost cutting and things just not working as desired that did improve over time. I think that's important to note. And so I think a lot of the products now, while still not something that I would compare as favorably to like original Elite blasters, gosh, so many lines just start off on a really bad foot. Elite 2.0 just happened to launch like a slew of blasters, so they had a good chance and some of them were okay. But man, did the bad ones really stick out. So I don't know how Hasbro keeps butchering these initial launches, but keep up the good work. Kaboom Does Stuff 7420. The Nerf Cam ECS 12 is underrated. Really cool looking and functioning blaster. You know what? At the time when it first came out, this would definitely be a hot take, but nowadays I don't think it's as hot. People have started to really latch onto that design, myself included. Maybe it took a little less time for me. I've been saying that the Cam ECS is a beautiful blaster and one of the best ones they've released, like looks-wise for ages. Function-wise, I mean, that's where things start to fall apart. You know, it's a Strife with a longer barrel, so the performance kind of suffered. Not amazing, not terrible, but then the integrated camera, guys. You had to really cheap out on that one. I know at the time it was like something kind of cool and like, ooh, look, it's built into the blaster. It just did not work well. The price is also a factor here. Like the original price of that thing, was it $80, $70, something way too high. If people still dislike the Cam ECS, they are missing out on a beautiful piece. Dennis Byers 1784. Lever action is fun but impractical. That is a hot take. I don't know if I agree with that. I think there are some situations where it can be perfectly practical. It really just makes or breaks whether like the lever action is smooth, comfortable, or it's like really clunky and you know, it's not reliable. So if it is, I don't see a real big problem with that. And if it's not, then I think that's what ruins it. Nick Price 2165, with one or two notable exceptions, something that Hasbro was pretty good at that hobby designers kind of suck at is coming up with helpful naming conventions for blasters. That's a hot take because I don't know if I agree with this one. The Ultra numbering scheme, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Dorado, Pharaoh, plus there's like reusing old names, does that count? I don't think that's very helpful when it comes to searching for new blasters or trying to find old ones. I don't know if any company is a shining example of what naming conventions should be. From Suze12, this hobby is way too US centric. Okay, well, we're gonna touch on a few of these types of comments, and I gotta say, just up front, not my fault, not a lot of people's fault, it's just back to the companies, but let's go on. From DragoDu823, I think that the best of the Nerf hobby is being gatekept to the US. European Nerfers are neglected, in my opinion. And from BJibBanaz015, Nerf should make their products available in Asia shortly after they become available in the West. They are so many good stuff, but so difficult to get to our country. Okay, so sometimes, nowadays, I think we do see stuff being released in Europe or in Asia before it actually hits the States, which is funny, so congratulations. But I get it. I know there's a frustration for people who are looking in to the US or maybe even to Canada, that like, oh, you guys get all the good stuff, like, oh, Dart Zone seems to really only be based in the US, why are you holding it for yourselves? And again, guys, it's I didn't choose this, the players here didn't choose this. Like, yeah, the business decisions are important, and obviously there's a lot of people in the US, so that's a very desirable market for us, but then the regulations in different countries, especially if they start in the US and they base all their products around our local laws, it's very difficult to then match up what works in the EU, what works in Asia, just, it's so different. And I hate to say it, but Hasbro has been saying that that's one of the goals of N Series, is to be just so widely accepted into different countries that it makes that process easy and they don't have to jump through hoops of changing blaster designs or internals to comply with like local regulations. So you got to admit, at least they're trying, but yes, I do get it. And I do feel bad for people who will comment sometimes and be like, oh, I wish I could get that, I can't get that. And it's like, it's not our fault. Like, again, we would love everyone to be able to play with this stuff, but it's just a little tough. And like, I'm obviously making videos typically for a US audience, and I pay attention to things that usually will impact me. So I'm not as aware when it comes to overseas laws and regulations. And in a similar vein, we've got Steven Tan 2754, Nerf Gray Trigger 40 to 50 FPS should not be a thing. This is only a problem if you're not American. And the Glassman, Gray Trigger models should no longer be produced. Japan and Australia lifted those bans recently. So like, yeah, I have no idea that that was the case. If that's true, I mean, cold take in my opinion, yeah, get rid of the gray triggers. We don't need to have the super low powered blasters that exist. I think maybe some people might be interested in lower tuned blasters of models that they like. But yeah, I would love for everywhere across the world to get the exact same performance blasters. It's just that obviously it doesn't work like that all the time. Has that only been something though that Hasbro has taken on? Because I can't think of another toy company for like foam dart blasters that has made lower powered versions in like those stores. It's just, it exists or it doesn't exist. So again, like, can we give Hasbro credit for trying to spread like their toys across the world? I don't know, man. Cappy Copper 6711. If the blaster's color scheme already has a bright color, the tip of the barrel should match it. Stop using orange when red is better suited. Well, that's a hot take, and I'm going to assume, based off of your spelling of color, that indicates you are not in the US. I know when it comes to people making their own blasters, sometimes they'll put different colored tips on the front, like a bright yellow, or a green, or a red. Like, yes, you can get away with it, but like, here in the States, It's just best practice. It's just do what you can to the bare minimum. I know that people will complain about this sometimes, but like, just do the bare minimum to be safe. And I know also that that's not necessarily going to keep it safe, because some things will still look too realistic. If you're going outside, you're going to an event, follow their laws, but just at the bare minimum, you know it's best practice. Put a little orange tip on the front, and we will probably be able to avoid some uncomfortable conversations at the very least. From L11862, as a hobbyist, you should be doing field repairs on blasters you find in thrift stores, even if you don't intend to buy them. What? Excuse me, what? This is the wildest hot take I think I've read thus far. Are you saying that I need to bring in like tools from outside and fix blasters that are like on Goodwill shelves, even if I'm not going to buy it, even if I was going to buy it? What does that conversation look like with the employees? No, please. I noticed this was jammed. I'm gonna fix it for you. I noticed the wiring was incomplete, so I brought in a solder kit so I could fix this blaster really quick. The person who buys this will thank me later. How else do I interpret this? I am broken. Wow. Is it hot in here? Yes, it is. That is a hot take. Thank you for making me laugh. If you're serious though, I need elaboration. Iron Man Mando, Nerf Zombie is so much worse than Zombie Strike. Yeah, I think universally this is a pretty cold take, though I will say there's not much to compare, honestly. Zombie Strike has quite a few offerings, and I mean, wow, Zombie Strike has some iconic blasters at this point, just some really solid foundations that a lot of us love. And Zombie, what do they have? A couple? Is it really feeling like a new line, or is it just the slow death of Zombie Strike? I see this as just, I wish Zombie Strike was still around, and Nerf says, Zombie what? Foam au fait. I am so gosh darn sick of calling the cylinders in revolvers turrets. A turret is a weapon emplacement, not a part. Well, that's a hot take, and definitely something that I say differently all the time. Therefore, I'm not sure if I want to complain about this one because I'm calling out myself. I'm surprised actually I saw this instead of like the clip versus mag discussion. Come on guys, let's debate the fun one. You know, if people call something a turret, it's not the end of the world. You can educate people without, you know, beating them over the head with like, no, this is what it is. Because if we get so distracted by those details, you've lost the plot. And I think that's definitely one way we risk losing new people. Just educate them nicely. Fast Hippie, we need more quality Elite Junior. The combination of light prime and big triggers are great for kids and adults alike. That's a hot take, because I'm sure a lot of people would want that to be gone so they can focus on something else, but yeah, fair. N-Series, I've talked about this before. Can we get N-Series and Elite Junior to like figure that out? Because I think there's something going on there. Strong Arm 11, hot take, the X-Shot Longshot is a great blaster and isn't crap. Wow, well that is hot. When it works, yeah. I think that in this case, X-Shot really missed the mark on just one simple piece. Like they cheaped out on so much stuff. If you'd kept the plunger tube just a little bit higher quality, then maybe we wouldn't have this problem. Does that mean that the blaster overall is bad? I guess it really depends on who you talk to. I personally don't think that it's a complete garbage blaster, but I do wish they would have increased the price just a little bit if it meant putting in a slightly better plunger tube. Skinny Scouter, use more types of ammo. Example, Demolisher rockets, Mega XL, ballistic balls, etc. Everyone just using half darts, and sometimes Rival and Mega is boring. Whoa, that is a hot take, because that last part, calling Rival and Mega boring, is being ungrateful. Do you know how lucky you are nowadays if you find your hobby games, your modern nerfing events with Rival and Mega still on the field? Also, we can't really get Demolisher rockets and ballistic balls reliably, so like, yeah, everyone who's saying we need to see more of those on the field, it's getting harder and harder, guys. Trust me, I have both, and every time I'm like, I could bring these to a game, it's like, oh, where are we playing? Am I gonna risk losing these? Is someone gonna walk off with them? Like, do I have to mark these with my name? It's not super hot to say we need more types of ammo on the field, but it just has become harder and harder to get things that are super specialized, at least Rival and Mega bring something that's a little bit different, using more types of ammo. Not a hot take, but a good take. Taco Tear animations. Most likely everyone's gonna hate me for this, I'll be the judge of that, but I think that Mega and Ultra lines are overrated. What is going on with these hot takes on Mega? Who sent you people? What do you have against Mega? That is a hot take and I will not stand for it. Also, I mean, like, okay, Mega darts are one of the older lines at this point too, if you have to compare it to some of the other dart types that are still being produced. I maintain that we should still be thankful that we can find Mega Blasters or even Mega Darts out there online and just like not for exorbitant prices. I get though why some people don't care so much for Mega because it's still similar enough. I think people who go out of their way to sing praises about Nerf Ultra are the ones that need to hear this. Well, yeah, Nerf Ultra is not super amazing, but it's also not terrible. It's definitely not overrated because at this point too, Ultra's not even being made. Daniel Huffman, I don't consider the inaccuracy of Ultra Blasters to be an inherently bad quality, as this is only applicable at longer ranges rather than close quarters combat, and would be an asset against large numbers of opponents. Is the hot take here that inaccurate darts are okay? What? Well, yeah, I mean, anytime you get closer to people, true, the inaccuracies don't matter as much. I gotta say though, Ultra AccuStrike lived up to its name, just like Mega AccuStrike. Ultra takes over everything. So I actually noticed that the Ultra Sonic Screamers seem to be a little bit more accurate too. Citation needed, proof required, you're not gonna get it here. There were some blasters that just seemed to be more reliable when it came to accuracy. So it's always gonna be a combination of flywheel blaster, Springer, the long barrel, short barrel, what kind of darts are you using? If you knew what you were doing, you could make Ultra darts be more accurate. But when you compare to the original advertising of Nerf Ultra with the Aerofin technology that's gonna make it the most accurate dart ever, that's when you get a little bit upset on the, hey, my accuracy is not that good, and that's definitely a hot take. Thanks, Hasbro. Phase 1 foam. People make excuses for Dart Zone when they mess up, but when Nerf does the same thing, it's always hate towards Nerf. There is no excuses for laziness or lack of effort. I would agree with this. I guess it's a hot take overall though. People will always have biases, and I think that's important to remember. Whether you realize it or not, you probably have some bias about a certain company, a certain creator, a certain product, a certain type of product. And yes, I do see some people defending Dart Zone when you think, wait, no, you can just call out that that's a bad thing and it's not that big of a deal. It's just, you're just talking about the product. Do some people go out of their way to hate on Nerf products because has bad Nerf, no good? I also think that that is true. And I think one of the reasons that Dart Zone has gotten away with this over the years is because they did a really good job of getting into our hobby, our little community, and making sure that when things were going awry or when new stuff was coming out, that we're listening to you guys, we will definitely release what's for you. And people felt like Dart Zone was just with us. They were listening to us every step of the way, they heard us, they were at our events, and so it became a little bit harder to criticize them when they're standing right next to you. You can't say anything mean about Dart Zone, you'll hurt their feelings and then they'll leave the hobby and they'll never make stuff for us again. And it's like, there's some truth to that. But also, they need to be willing to receive criticism. They should receive criticism, and constructive criticism, I mean, like for their stuff, because we want their stuff to get better, and if they make better stuff, then we will buy it. And the same thing we would hope with a company like Hasbro, with their Nerf blasters. It's just that that doesn't always happen. Lego Maker 101 Potato. Nerf is not hated on enough. Whoa. Hot take incoming. Hate's a strong word. The few times they do something for the community, it usually has major flaws like cheap structure, inability to get replacements, my Strife X is worthless since I don't have a battery that works anymore, or just bad design. Springer Pro Blasters have jams, and I think that's because of the plastic barrel. I think they are looked past a lot because I don't want to be negative, but this just leads to most people not even knowing about the issues. I think this is a step too far. It's a very hot take, and I would like to push back on it a little bit. I 100% agree that it's frustrating when Nerf puts out a product and they don't have like a spare battery, because yeah, if my Strife X battery dies, then I would also be like, what the heck? That's frustrating when any company does that. But people critique all these points all the time. It's not just that we're calling out other companies, we're very, outspoken about Nerf's products. See, previous comment, I mean, we were talking about how it's always Nerf that gets overhated. This is saying Nerf is not hated on enough. There needs to be a reminder that all these companies have people working at them. You can have toxic positivity towards products and toxic negativity. You can critique the products and the business practices without also going after the people who work there. I know you're probably saying, well, I didn't mean that, but like at a certain point when you're just going after like, oh, Hasbro bad no matter what you do because it's not this, it's not that, like we need to overhate on this one company, I think that kind of crosses the line. You can like something and have complaints about it, and you should point them out. For example, with the Strife X again. I like the Strife X overall, but I acknowledge it's not nice that they don't have battery replacements, and there's some ergonomic things that are a little bit weird, but it's like overall usable. Am I a shill or just like hiding the truth because I don't talk about every little nitpick? Everyone focuses on different things. I don't think that means that we're hiding those little facts and people are going to be misled. I agree when someone says, I don't want to be negative, then that might be missing some important details that would make or break a purchasing decision, but only literal ads would brush over the negatives like 100%. So we can give constructive criticism towards any company, and if they choose to spit in our face with hearing that constructive feedback, then that sucks, but that's what it is. And at the same time, we don't need to go out of our way to be like, oh, I'm not even gonna pay attention to Hasbro anymore. Like, oh, I'm gonna go out of my way to comment on all of Nerf's posts and say, Dart Zone better, or X Shot's more fun, you guys need to do this, X, Y, and Z. Not engaging with a company and not purchasing their stuff is an excellent way to tell them, I don't care. From Sergeant Conager, high rate of fire is not as good as you'd think. How good do you think that I think high rate of fire is? That's a hot take right there. I don't really know how to interpret this. Like, I get it. Like, you think that, oh, we've got to dump mags as fast as possible. Oh, everyone thinks that. Does everyone really think that? I think everyone knows that there's like a happy balance, and some people like to dump a lot of darts, and other people would prefer a more controlled rate of fire. But at that point, they'd probably switch to like semi-auto. So full mag dumps, crazy high rate of fire. I mean, it's fun to watch. That's why people like it. Do they always use it in like games? I don't think so. Is it as good as I'd think or you'd think? I don't know, man. Please explain. Matthew Lugardo 4223. Rival is the best ammo type for beginners. I think that's a very reasonable take. So kind of cold. I think Rival just being, spherical, very easy to load into magazines if they exist, very easy to load into hoppers. Rival's just very family friendly. Like even if it is flying, a little farther and harder than some other stuff that is the, lower FPS, very family friendly stuff, Rival is just, it's fun and it's easy to, it's easy to play with. It's definitely a good way for beginners to get interested in things. Magic Martin 666, if Nerf gave up making blasters and solely made short and long AccuStrike darts, Hasbro would be a more profitable company. It's definitely a hot take. Also, what? Okay, if Hasbro just kept making AccuStrike darts for their blasters instead of bringing out let's say N1 darts, would they be more profitable? I don't know. There's so many factors that go into this. Would we be happier? Probably. We would probably be happier as a hobby if they made accurate darts. We will always be happier if a company makes accurate darts. But if they just made darts and not blasters. I hate to point out the obvious, but what are they going to be fired out of at that point? And I know the whole point of this is that Nerf has made AccuStrike darts, and the fact that they aren't still making them, they discontinued them very quickly and made them for a very specific line of blasters is kind of the frustration. And they also brought back half AccuStrike darts for their Strife X, and that kind of seems to be the only place that they did that too, as a slap in the face. Why can't you do it more? But we also saw proof that they just don't work in every blaster. AccuStrike heads don't work in all the blasters that they make. That's why the new Nerf Pro blasters made a different dart to be compatible. So I think if those darts were made better, we could be happy, because it seems like some people have some issues with those too. What if we saw those in a longer configuration? Would that make you happy? I don't think it would make Nerf profitable. I don't think it would make Hasbro profitable either. I think there's a lot of factors that would go into making Hasbro more profitable, and it's not just about making AccuStrike darts. So, hot take, gonna have to disagree. Mechanwall 6590, the Night Finder is perfectly usable today. Yes, that's a cold take because, yeah, as long as the Night Finder isn't broken, it still works today. Do you mean like you could bring it to a game and it would still be usable? I mean, like a stock Night Finder is not very powerful. Night Finders are, of course, a classic mod. You can do a lot to a Night Finder. You could probably still use it in a game with a little bit of modification. Or stock. I might know a thing or two about using something like that in a game. Don't let your dreams be dreams. You go use that Night Finder in a game. Tell me how it goes. Bright side with an X. Nerf needs to double down on Rival and get Pro line out. Ooh, that is definitely a hot take. I would say this though, we should be thankful that Rival's still here, and I know people will argue about, oh, modern Rival not as good as old Rival or this point in time Rival. Like, there have been a lot of opportunities for Rival to just be cut, but it is popular enough that it stays. And even if you don't like Rival, I think it represents an important ammo diversity that Nerf is kind of like based on. You know, the fact that we don't just have foam darts and Nerf, we have balls and discs and, you know, larger ammo types. So like keeping foam balls in Nerf ecosystem is, in my opinion, pretty important. So it's great that Rival still exists, even if it's been changed, mutated over time. Does that mean that they need to get the Pro line out so they can focus on Rival? I don't think that is something you need to worry about, because I don't know if Nerf really sees the Pro line as something to focus on beyond this point anyways. Maybe, maybe not. I think if you said they need to get N series out and focus on Rival, that would be a little bit more on the money. I don't think having Nerf Pro and Rival at the same time is a detriment. Old Baron's BI7HJ, the Nerf Halo Bulldog is underrated. Okay, it's a hottish take, but why? Can you give me a reason why? It's underrated because it looks cool? It performs better than you expected? The Nerf Halo Bulldog will blow your mind? It's rare and now you can't get it, therefore it's underrated? Is it on Amazon, like only have 3 stars and you think it deserves 4? Stephen Jameson 3085, worker needs to take another crack at a Strifeoid with their current design language. Ooh, I agree with that. Maybe that's gonna be a hot take because people are sick of strifes overall? Whatever. The old worker design language that they did with strifes was interesting. Some of their modern stuff I think would produce a pretty cool looking blaster, and probably be a bit more reliable than some of that old stuff too. Especially because they'd probably be putting it out as a completed blaster and not as like a shell, and then you've got to figure out all the stuff you want to put in yourself. Lazy? Yes. Do I want that? Maybe. Lil Big Young, worker is starting to get too complacent and comfortable by releasing the same thing over and over again. Oh, whoops. Namely, the Harrier, Seagull, Kunlun, essentially reshells when you really think about it. Okay, see previous comment, and now we're in trouble. Now we're at odds. I don't know if this is a hot take or a cold take. I think it really depends on who you talk to. We'll call it a reasonable take then. I think overall we can kind of appreciate the more modern approach that Worker takes to blasters, at least with like quality. It's not perfect, I know, but like go back a few years before like the pandemic and whoa, what is going on here? If you know, you know. So yes, they've gotten a little complacent with some of their offerings now, and it does feel like the most recent blaster they put out is just a little too similar to the Harrier. Maybe it's a little bit different. The prices are definitely high. So that's that. I don't know if they're doing what they're doing because they feel it's more comfortable or a safer bet than like doing something completely new. Worker's just kind of a black box when it comes to figuring out what they're doing and why. But I agree, I'd like to see some more fun stuff from Worker that's unique. Speaking of that, Dillhouse259. We, Nerfers and companies, are running out of fresh new blaster ideas. There are still plenty of innovative blasters just waiting to be found, don't get me wrong, but a lot of guns just feel samey now, and we're getting less of those super cool and unique blasters because a lot of the ideas for them have already been done. That's definitely a hot take. Some people will complain about this, and other people are just happy that a lot of options exist. And I find myself being the latter quite a bit of times. Like, yeah, you'll sometimes see stuff coming out that is very, very similar, whether it be like within the same company, as we just talked about with like Worker, or it's very similar across all companies. But that just means that you have a bunch of options that you can choose your favorite from, which is cool. But what happens when, yes, after like 3 years, every company has released like a very similar blaster, and now you're like, okay, well now there's just more options to choose from this same category, and it gets a little bit, yeah, samey, stale. But I also think that a lot of people, they talk about what they want, and then the companies kind of react, or like they just don't see the risk. So they don't take as many chances because it's not worth a big flop. I know there's a comment I put in a later video that dives a little bit more into this, but yeah, it does feel like sometimes we're running out of ideas, but I think there's always going to be something. There's always like a new approach to an old idea that might just be executed better, which will feel like it's unoriginal, but if it's done better, then, you know, we're all ears. Like new manufacturing techniques, new companies that are willing to like put higher quality materials into a particular product. I don't know, I don't think we're completely out of ideas, but I think it's hard to sometimes see them come to light. From Cameric, I still think that the Hyper Rush 40 is an amazing blaster. Hot take, there we go. At least for indoor area play, and for the price unmodded, it's on par with pro level blasters. Is it on par with pro level blasters? Maybe, maybe not. You say indoor, I can agree with that a little bit, but oh wait, the Rush 40. Why did my mind go to the Mach 100? Rush 40, yes. Okay, I agree more with that. Sorry, you'd think I would know all the Hyper Blasters off the top of my head, but it's been a while. The Rush 40 can be a lot of fun. It is definitely one of the strongest in the line's offerings, and I think if you're using just standard Hyper still, you can get pretty good with it, as long as the club that you're playing at or where you're playing at allows Hyper. And I do think overall, Hyper has its place indoors. It can be pretty fun. What was that big, the big one that came out later, like the pump action one? That one was actually kind of fun to use indoors. Biggie, like too big, but fun. Jackal Blade 9, we need more blasters like the Adventure Force Desperado. Cheap, well-made, and dare I say, gimmicky. Agree. We need a balance of affordability and fun. I think the Desperado is a great example of that isn't just like a single shot blaster. Dart Zone under the Adventure Force line, same with X-Shot. I think have been able to put out some really good ones in that category. X-Shot usually being the kings of single shot blasters. No one's coming to take your crown, guys. You can change it up a little bit. Dart Zone has definitely put out some really strong offerings that are like in that budget friendly category. And once you like shrink down blasters to a really small size, the like quality of the plastic is usually not as big of a deal because all the internals are right up against it, so it feels pretty solid because there's no room for feeling how thin the plastic is. Sorry, I think I'm talking about X-Shot again. But yes, the Desperado, pretty fun for the price and like effective. I wish Nerf was putting out more stuff like that again. I don't know if they just don't want to or they don't see the purpose of it, but they used to like have some cool stuff. Snapfire 8, anyone? Can we even call that gimmicky? I guess it is. Depends on who you talk to. Magic Martin 666, the Nerf Dart Tag Swarmfire is the greatest blaster Nerf ever created. This is a hill I will happily die on. I mean, that's a hot take right there, and that's some dedication. I can see the appeal. I don't know if I'm gonna push back on this. I think it's a really good, like user-friendly blaster. I think you can kind of give that to almost anyone and it's just really intuitive to use. I wish they made more stuff like that nowadays. That seems like the easiest thing for all ages, right? Austinite 2684. The hobby is teetering on the edge of some kind of major injury of a child getting national news coverage and could spell the end of public play. This is not a hot take, unfortunately. I think this is very real. We're entering some fun topics, FYI. Woohoo! Get ready. I keep this in the back of my mind all the time. You know that when you see Nerf in the news and it's not about like a new release that's going to blow you away, it's like 9 times out of 10, you're just like, oh no, what happened? Oh, Orbeez challenge. Okay, that's kind of separate. Someone wasn't wearing eye protection or, God forbid, something worse involving like, oh, I thought that was a real gun. And things get a little bit hairy and dicey. And I know people are well aware that there are different levels of like, oh, but that's a toy. Obviously, because even this airsoft gun, that's a toy. The general public, they don't know what some of these Nerf blasters are capable of nowadays. And what am I even saying? It doesn't even matter. some of these things that are low powered. All it takes is for one of those to be misrepresented. That's why it's always important to vouch for safety, wear eye protection, and when it comes to events, make sure it's pretty obvious what's going on. From Silly Butts, the slow creeping in of firearm designs and aesthetic into the hobby and homemade blaster scene is dangerous and morally wrong. We play with toys, and making toys look like firearms, replica builds, full black paint, etc., not only hurts the general public perception of our hobby, but is also dangerously legal, see Australia, and dangerous for each individual. Don't get shot by the police because you wanted a realistic blaster. It's idiocy. Instead of making our hobby into airsoft, just go away and LARP with your buddies in airsoft. Give us back our bright colors and funky shapes. From Lightning Eagle 14, all black and realistically painted blasters and loadouts should just be banned everywhere. And from Willis 00788, brands should make less Milsim style pro blasters and more goofy and fun pro blasters. Also, just more goofy and fun blasters in general, including the ones classified as toys. Yeah, the last one. Alright, back on the more serious stuff. Kind of what I spoke to already. Obviously, this is a hot take because for some people, this kind of contradicts why they got into Nerf. In 2024 going into 2025, there's so many different avenues at which people find Nerf and like why they want to play with toy foam dart blasters. For some people, it's like, oh, I like guns. These are Nerf guns. I'm going to play with Nerf gun now. I can make it look more realistic like my real gun or like my airsoft gun. And so they see like the similarities and they want to match something like that. But there's also people who find Nerf from the toy route. They're like, oh, this isn't gun. I like that this is toy. This is less serious. I can get all ages in on it and it's a little bit more safe and it doesn't have to be like playing with something that looks like a firearm. Those are just two examples, right? But those two will clash. And we always will see examples of ideas like that clashing online. In person, it's a little bit more dependent on where you live because in some cases it's just like, nope, you're not bringing that at all, period, end of story. But in some parts of the country, yeah, people can bring out blasters that look a bit more realistic and it's not going to be a problem. And some people bring out more realistic stuff because they just happen to be in a setting where more people are playing with blasters that look like toys and they can kind of hide it in the crowd of people. It's like, oh, that's obviously a group of kids and adults playing and it's not a big deal. But still, yes, that can be picked out and be the reason why someone calls the police on you. I know that this is a touchy subject and I know some people are going to have strong opinions and frankly, opinions that will not budge on this. I personally have access to something like airsoft or paintball if I so choose. If I want to play more like that and I want to play with realistic looking stuff, I could go do that and I could kind of very much put Nerf in a different category as a result. Like I can see Nerf and the reason I play Nerf for what it is, toys, but I do have to acknowledge that there is a firearm aesthetic to it no matter what. I just choose to try and keep it as separate as possible. I try to use the terminology that will keep that safe and will be keeping others as safe as possible. But I know that there's always going to be a little bit of that there. And here's a flip side argument from Mainstay. We need historical reenactments using foam flinging blasters, especially with all the 3D printed stuff coming out, like the flintlocks, muskets, etc. So like, I guess, is that a hot take? Sure. Like I can see when people 3D print like their own like old school style like guns, and again, like it matters where you're doing this too. You'll still get eyes on it that aren't from that area that will inspire people that maybe shouldn't be trying to replicate that. It's like, yeah, maybe not great, but like a musket's kind of big and obvious. So like I can see in some cases how you can get away with it, but yes, overall, I don't understand people who want to just dump a coat of black paint on their blaster and take it out to an event. And I am talking to kind of a US-based audience here in that case, because if I look across the world, who am I to judge because I'm in a completely different country and talking from different laws? This is always going to be a divisive topic, and it's really going to depend on who you talk to and what's the context, but overall, like, for my channel and what I try to publish to the world, I try to keep it as toy-friendly as possible. Not kid-friendly, we find the happy medium. This is not made for kids. If you want to go play with something more realistic, yes, I do encourage people to explore options that are better developed, like airsoft or even paintball. And that's not a mean thing to say. I think if you like that aesthetic, the stuff already exists. Fun comments inbound. From Luki Anello 6190, as much as designers like Silly are doing amazing work, I dislike that almost every new must-have blaster is something that is 90% 3D printed. I just want to modify something from a brand like Nerf or X-Shot, and that's becoming harder to do as time goes on. As a hot take, disagree with that last part. It has never been easier, in my opinion, to modify stuff on store shelves, assuming that it's not solvent welded shut and missing screws. It's never been easier to look back on an old blaster and be like, can I improve this? And have like a litany of options for, oh yes, I can actually make this better. Cool. Modding is alive and well. You can still do that. Now, as for 3D printing has become very outspoken for hobbyists, so I very much agree on this one. I've kind of taken the approach of stepping a little bit away from using 3D printed blasters myself, at least to a like extreme level, because yeah, I don't have a 3D printer, so it doesn't make sense for me to own too many 3D printed blasters. It kind of makes sense to have a printer if you're going to be supporting those kinds of blasters. It's also a hobby in its own right, so you need to be invested in the 3D printing world if you're going to own that stuff. And I know, yeah, some people very much intertwine 3D printing and Nerf, but they are important to kind of have like individual knowledge sets of, because yeah, if you're just getting a 3D printer to make Nerf stuff and you don't know anything about that printer, you're gonna have a bad time. It's gonna become a paperweight in a couple months if you're not taking care of it. But I can also see why people are so excited and outspoken about new 3D printed offerings, because people are just making new stuff that they wanna make. People are like, oh my gosh, now I can make this and I can print this, and other people are selling it, and it's like, it's exciting. So it's just very easy to get excited about new 3D printed offerings, especially when those people who are making it are the ones that are like running around saying like, hey, have you seen this before? It's not just like you're talking or hearing from a company, you're hearing from the person. Hissinger889, this hobby is one of the cheapest to get into, but it can get expensive really fast if you don't invest in a 3D printer. Yes, see previous comments. Not a very hot take. I think one of the best things, yes, about Nerf in the past was that like, yeah, you can buy a cheap blaster and modify it with cheap parts, and you'll do just fine. And if you want to go even further, you can roll the dice and go thrifting and get a really cheap blaster. And again, modify it with cheap parts and have a good time. Or just buy there and it'll work just fine too. But yes, the introduction of 3D printing at mass scale to this hobby has allowed the prices to go up a bit faster. But I think even before 3D printing, there were ways that you could start spending money real fast in this hobby. There have always been ways that you can drop hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on exclusive blasters. Like really good modifications, paint jobs have always costed a pretty penny. So 3D printed blasters have sort of accelerated that if you know where to look, but I think we've always had some expensive offerings if you wanted to spend some serious money. Icarus521, hot take, running crazy amounts of ammo and full autoing every zombie you see makes it really hard to want to play zombie early game, HVZ specific. That shouldn't be a hot take, but for some people, yeah, I guess it is. Also, quick question, what was your last HVZ experience? Was this comment written immediately afterwards? Because it feels very targeted. HVZ just kind of balances itself out. If people are just full autoing and, you know, dumping mags on like one zombie at a time, they will run out of ammo. That said, yeah, we should say you don't need to like dump a bunch of darts on zombies. I know sometimes they don't feel it. It happens, it's in the heat of the game. Conserve your ammo, be smart. Don't mag dump. Hoeni 2000, hot take, modding blasters such as the Vulcan to be useful enough to run at HVZ level games nowadays is still more fun than adding the third boring spring spacer to a prefabbed pro blaster like the Tryon. The gimmicky fun of mods seems almost completely gone, replaced by an overdone and boring, just buy a Nexus Pro and some springs. Who would ever say something like that in jest? This is a hot take, of course. I gotta revisit the putting your third spring spacer into a prefab Tryon for HVZ? I sure hope not. That's a little bit too powerful. But I get the idea. I think HVZ though is a place where you do still see some unique loadouts. You do see people bringing the fun stuff, and I love when people get serious and excited about the themes, so they make a blaster and an outfit, you know, to fully match their loadout that will fit the aesthetic of the game that the mods have designed. So sometimes that will lead to a blaster that's not super practical. It's just goofy and funny, and I love that. You always have the people running around with a handful of socks and you'll probably still have people with proton packs. But I think that HVZ has its own identity where people still do really try to bring out the fun and goofiness, and that is a cornerstone of what makes Nerf silly, at least like our hobby events. Blue Boy 9959. We need some sort of definitive organization for local or college events. It would make it a lot easier to start clubs in areas where none currently exist. It's not really a hot take, it just would be convenient. Many have tried and many have failed. Or I shouldn't say failed, they've just failed to keep up. It's the hardest thing to do is like, yo, you can start something and gather a bunch of information and then it just gets outdated really fast, and if you don't have people who are constantly paying attention to it, it goes away. Double L1862. FPS is a bad metric to judge a blaster's performance. Force and distance are much better, though harder to measure. And Bulkhead Bry, there needs to be a different way to measure how fast a projectile can fly for games. 100 FPS half dart hits differently than 100 FPS Mega XL, and split FPS caps are cumbersome. Okay, is this a hot take? I think people get upset about this all the time, but we still haven't had an official decision to move forward with it that isn't just like FPS. Split FPS caps have worked all right, but yes, they are cumbersome and they vary depending on who you talk to and where you look at. So many of these FPS caps have just existed because over time they just became the established standard, but we shouldn't let time be the dictator of like, oh, it'll work itself out, don't need to worry about it for now. People want to know. It's a safety thing sometimes too, because yes, when we're talking about like Mega or Mega XL, you don't want those things to necessarily be the same FPS cap. I don't know who though is going to be the official decision maker on that stuff. Every club, every group seems to do their own thing. You know, some groups talk to each other, some events talk to each other. I know a lot of people are looking into this, but I don't know when the official Nerf Council will release their guidelines, when John Nerf will kind of descend from his Hasbro throne and be like, thou shall use this FPS for this event, and this FPS for this dart blaster, and XYZ. But I agree, I would also like to see this refined over time. Steven Tan 2754. Hot take, there's a lot of ingrates in the Nerf community, not naming names. Yep. Are you talking about me? My own video. This is obviously very vague, but yes, sometimes you need to be reminded to be grateful and thankful for what already exists. I need a reminder too sometimes. Tim Haven J8355. Hot take, we got what we wanted and now I don't want it. With Pro-Line blasters on shelves, we aren't on the hunt for that rare blaster at thrift stores, taking the time to do the modding to make them hit high FPS and fun paint jobs to show how proud we are of our work. I disagree with some of this. Some people are exclusively like thrifters. They will go to the stores, they will explicitly wait for some of these new blasters to hit thrifting shelves, even if they weren't released like on-store shelves. That first part's very interesting though, so let's continue. Out of Ideas 9977, it's our fault as to why blasters nowadays are boring. Yikes. Back in the day, we watched reviews from Coop and some other people, and they would push this narrative that if something didn't fire above 70 FPS, besides some pistols, we would consider them to be junk blasters, even if they had some unique gimmicks. Nerf seemed to realize this and they just stopped making gimmicky blasters after 2018-2019. Even then, stuff was getting unoriginal. And here we are today complaining about the fact that stuff is unoriginal when we caused this. Wow, blaming reviewers like Coop and blaming the consumers is a wild take, but you know, you can do that. Just because the hobbyists say, we don't like this, that's not what really moves the needle. Like yeah, Coop may have had a sway, I don't know how much of a sway on like what people bought outside of the hobby too, but Nerf pays attention to some different numbers overall when it comes to significant changes. Maybe they pay attention to hobbyists like us when it comes to making a pro line, or they pay attention to when the competition finally does it, and then they're like, okay, well now we should probably respond. But I still think we have gotten gimmicky blasters all through this time. It's just that you hear more about the other stuff, or more people talk about the other stuff, and it overshadows what is still being released. Skinny Scouter, on-shelf pro-level blasters are killing the modding hobby. Here we go. FTF Supremacy Roblox. The ever-growing pro-grade market makes modding toy-grade blasters pretty much entirely useless. Getting hot in here. Seth the Nerfer. I feel like modding has gone to the wayside compared to the earlier days of the hobby. It's quite rare I see a modded Longshot or Big Bad Bow anymore. It's usually the same mix of 3D printed blasters, especially in the 200 FPS plus range, and it upsets me a bit because I feel like we've strayed away from our roots. And Strong Arm 11, very hot take, Nerf modding is overrated and kind of pointless. Wow, the modding takes come out. Modding is dead, guys. I hate to say it, but all the new stuff on store shelves has made modding completely obsolete, and we don't need it anymore. Let's continue. Huge hot take from, gosh dang it, Microsoft is dumb, 8699, love it. People who buy 20 of the same gun only to do slight mods when there is already a gun that does exactly what they want tend to tick me off. Okay, so basically, why buy Blaster X and mod it when Blaster Y exists? Well, I got an answer for all this, guys. Why do people still mod? Good news, because they can. Because it's fun, because the thrill of pushing things to its limits or doing something that a blaster wasn't designed to do is just fun. And that's never gonna go away. Modding is just an art. It's a craft to some people. It's more interesting than the performance of the blaster sometimes. There are a lot of games where you can take blasters to, but you don't need a game to mod. And I think that's why modding content took over the scene back in the day, because you could go out and buy this blaster, and then you found, like, Lord Draconical made a little mod guide, Bobolo made a mod guide, Nerfomania, and it's like, oh my gosh, all these people are tinkering with their stuff, I want to do that too. And it appeals to a certain person with a STEM-focused interest, and it's just never going to die. And some people will still make stuff from the ground up, and some people are totally fine with buying a blaster off store shelves and never opening it. But the truth is, no matter what gets released next, whether it's a pro blaster or a super underpowered blaster, people are going to open it up and tinker with it. Hissinger889, the influx of so many cheap store-bought blasters has made this less of a hobby and more consumerism for me. I have lost the drive to go out and make my own unique blaster because I can go to Wally World and buy something that will perform just as good for half the price. And I think that's where priorities become a little bit more important. It used to be the case, yeah, you could collect almost every new release. Now there's no way you can do that. But also, prices are all over the place. There's some things that are super cheap and affordable, and there's other stuff where, oh my gosh, I'm dropping hundreds of dollars on this one thing. So now it's forced people to kind of prioritize what you really want to do in this hobby. Do you want to just tinker and stuff? You can go to thrift stores and risk it and, you know, get some stuff for super cheap. You can buy stuff off the store shelves, online, you can bring that to games, or you can just focus on bringing it home and, like, modding. Make something that's a really cool, unique piece, and that's gonna probably take some time, but it's also not necessarily gonna cost you a lot if you know what you're looking for. Joaquin8233, the general online community gets too cynical and negative about change. Old school modding isn't dead, 200 FPS on store shelves isn't bad. Real. Very true. And that's also important to know, is that sometimes we just see something online, you read something and it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's the truth, that's it. Modding is dead because I haven't seen it for a while. But at the same time, we know modding isn't dead. People talk about modding all the time. There are plenty of mod channels that exist. It's just there's so much other stuff that you might see first, and you will forget that modding has always been a part of the modding community. Now, I will say 200 FPS or higher on store shelves, and even gel, like for Nerf and other similar companies, I just wonder if that should be in, like, the toy section. I don't have a problem with that being on store shelves. I just wonder if, like, at a certain point, should we move it, like, to the sporting goods section or something, like, just for safety purposes? I mean, I obviously am responsible enough adults. I know that, but, like, a younger one, do they know? Do their parents know? Austinite2684. Everyone complaining about pro blaster fatigue is the same as the people who complain about only wanting pro blasters. We're currently spoiled for choice both ways, and that's a good problem to have. And Wizard Builds 207. Off-the-shelf pro blasters are boring. Most of them are just remakes of what came out a couple of years before. Just because it hits 150 plus FPS doesn't mean it can't be a creative and gimmicky design. It might be boring for people who just want something new, or they're just thinking about something different. Maybe they don't even know what that different thing is. I want a gimmick, but I want you to tell me what the gimmick is. So it's hard for people to really narrow down on, like, what their definition of new is that'll make them happy, we shouldn't complain too much if something's on the store shelves and it's usable. I know I've talked about this up to a certain point because this is the last episode. If every company makes the same type of blaster and they're all on store shelves or all available at the same time, then that's a good thing because now you have options and you can weigh the options between the different blasters and make the best informed purchase decision. And at a certain point, if everyone keeps doing the exact same thing, then it definitely gets stale. But I don't think we're completely at that point. I think every company has enough diversity in their products that you can find something that's a little bit different. There are still things that, yes, I would love to see other companies try to tackle, maybe some ideas that they tried a decade ago, and you're like, well, what if they did this? But I maintain that options between similar offerings is a good thing. Lightning Eagle 14. PVC homemades are a good entry point to blaster modding. Cheap, basic tools vastly outperforms stock stuff. For performance, maybe. Yes, I think there's still something fun about those old school PVC homemades. But for an entry point, I'm not so sure. I think it's a little bit easier to just buy something off the store shelf and then modify it. Like, there are some good choices and there are some very bad choices. And as long as you know which ones those are, it can be a very seamless entry point. And I think for some people, modifying from the ground up, like literally making a homemade, is a task that's way too arduous and is going to very much discourage them from seeking out any more like Nerf related modding activities. But for some people, yeah, that's the kind of building and creation that they want to do. Seth's Nerf Fun. Remember when blasters being put together into something crazy was the coolest thing? Now we just hop on a computer and do it there. And I can't remember the last time I saw a real integration. I mean, this is kind of wild to me because they're definitely out there, but again, I kind of understand it because we've just seen so much more of like, hey, 3D printed blaster, new blaster from Hasbro, X-Shot, and it's like underneath all of it, people are still making some really cool integrations. People are able to make their own designs a little bit more quickly. They're able to modify existing stuff a little bit more quickly. Merge Masters hasn't gone away. In fact, it just came back and they've had this whole competition. So if you know where to look, it's still happening. And if you go to an event, there are still people with some really crazy builds that aren't just 3D printed. Some people are still putting some great work and a lot of hours into these builds. And as we keep seeing releases of new stuff, the integration material is only going to expand and people are only going to have more to work with. Jonathan Barry, NK4FZ. Jank modding is the best modding. Maybe this is actually a cold take for the list. What am I supposed to add to this? It's perfect. BL00193, Gavin Face. Everyone actually agrees that low FPS is fun. The real hot take is that high FPS is fun. So what in the gaslighting? Is that? No. That's... in this day and age, in the year of our Lord 2024 going on 2025, I think any FPS can be fun, but also if high FPS being fun is a hot take, then why are we seeing a huge increase in like 200 plus FPS games and, you know, competitions being like 250, other people doing like 300 or even uncapped games, which I think is wildly irresponsible. That's my hot take for the day. Yeah, I'm not following this one. Shades Temple. I think the high FPS chase is becoming a problem. I feel like it's making the overall hobby less casual and more like paintball. And Alex IP 16399, high performance brand name blasters, DZ Pro, Nerf Pro, X-Shot Pro, etc. have created a division in blaster communities between tinkerers and players. I have noticed a much larger flow of check out what I bought posts in lieu of check out what I made posts. In the past, those who wanted to play at high FPS also needed to know how to mod, but now modding has become optional, though I will acknowledge the lower barrier of entry that these blasters have brought to the hobby. And this is the trade-off. Do we want more people to be able to play high FPS games, say, or are we saying that a little gatekeeping or just proof of knowledge is necessary? Because I do want more people to be able to play, but I do agree that yeah, when someone shows up for the first time and is like, oh yeah, well I just spent, you know, $500 on my brand new loadout, and this is my first Nerf blaster ever, and you're like, whoa, okay, I mean, I'm glad that you're able to play. I don't even know if you needed to do that though. If you really want that particular product, then by all means, and if you have the money for it, great. But does that also speak to like, is this a rich kid's hobby? We don't want that to be a rich kid's hobby. We've kind of identified before that Nerf is great because it's an easy access point and anyone can get in for kind of any price. And nowadays it does feel like sometimes, not all the time, sometimes people who are willing to drop like thousands of dollars on this hobby are the ones that show up with stuff that you just like can't compete with. Is that the future of this hobby? I hope not. And that might be true as people chase higher FPS numbers at these high performance events. Low FPS events, I mean, some people still spend a lot of money on blasters that have a crazy rate of fire and are incredibly reliable and just look a certain way. But I think yes, some of these hobby events that have a higher FPS cap are where you're seeing some of these discrepancies. And I don't know exactly what the right answer is to it. Charles the Toast. Short darts and performance have been taking over the hobby and I'm sick of it and I'm tired of pretending that it's not. We need the fun back in the hobby. Did it leave though? Let's continue. The Scott player. Half darts are the only new ammo that isn't disliked by the Nerf community. Cough cough and one cough cough. Django foam flinger. I have never thought I'd feel blaster burnout, but ever since I got into the competitive side, I've been chasing every high-powered blaster released this year, and none of them stand up to their hyped expectations. Now I have too many high-powered blasters and need to get rid of them. And Saxperson1672, while the fast rate of which super good blasters like the Striker 2.0 are released is good for the hobby, it can sometimes be too fast, which can be hard to keep up with. Things have gone fast. A lot of new stuff. Again, we've talked about some of these things already. It's like, it's great to have options, but like, yeah, at a certain point, is it too much? Is it too much to sift through? Does that mean that we should wait and then you pick what you really want because we know at this point that more competitive offerings are going to be released? Is the fun really gone? Are half darts really the only thing people care about? I'd say obviously not. I mean, if these things weren't fun, we wouldn't be having those events, but no, I hear you. I think the hobby has become more notorious now for championing what sets us apart from general audiences, that being the high power blasters for serious nerfers only, right? If it's low powered, then it's not serious, it's casual, and then we separate that into high performance, modders, enthusiasts, and everyone below that, you know, can be kind of grouped together. And I don't love that. The reality might not be what you see online. What am I saying? The reality is never what you see online. But I think the online spaces can be quite vocal. And reviews from people who operate in the online spaces can also be quite vocal. Like you're hearing, oh, this is the best new Pro Blaster, this is the best new Pro Blaster, and it takes time to really figure out what is the best new blaster for you. It's going to depend on everyone a little bit differently. And just because, like, even if I reviewed a blaster and said, this is the best blaster ever for me, it's not going to be the best for you. Your situation, your game preferences, if you're even going to go to a game, really does matter. And you do risk feeling the blaster burnout, exactly. If you do just buy every new thing, aside from spending quite a bit of money, yeah, you'll feel like, well, why did I buy all this stuff? I think the biggest takeaway for me now, and hopefully something I can impart on others, is just wait a little bit. Be it because maybe that blaster will go on sale, it's always nice, but more truths about that blaster will be revealed, the longevity of it. Someone's going to jump in and take the plunge and they're going to tell you, after a little bit of use, if it's still operating as intended. Or they're going to find out new stuff and be like, whoa, you should get this because that one hidden feature that no one told you about, it takes time. And I think if you can afford to just wait a little bit, just past that little FOMO, you'll find yourself being a little bit happier. Alex Explains Show. Adult competitive scene needs to be better organized. Bring back Velcro tip if needed. We have the technology. It's a wide statement for better organization. I'm going to focus in on the bring back Velcro tips. Velcro tips for 2025. I think this speaks back to the let's have a dart tag championship for 2025. Make it happen, Hasbro. Adults can take it. We can take taggers at stock speeds and even 200 plus. It's a risk we're willing to take if it means we get dart tag back. Lightning Eagle 14. Pump action mag-fed springers are an overdone blaster design. Each new design is only marginally better than the previous one. And from Nefomp. Pump action half-dart mag-fed springers are the FIFA of the hobby. They're all the same, but with this one new feature. Brutal, but fair. Yes, you knew that pump action springers were going to come up again at some point. Everyone talks about this, but I think it's just because the platform has proven itself for companies and designers. You know, everyone takes a stab at a pump action springer. It just makes sense. You can make your own comfort without completely going like out of your way ergonomic wise and price wise. Like, it's just simple. And there's still some different takes to it. that companies will do, and I hate to keep repeating the same points, but yeah, if everyone competes on the same platform, eventually you'll find the one that works best for you, be it because of the price, or because of the comfort, or the reliability, because yes, they're not all the same reliability, or just the power. Some of these things are better at lower FPS, and some are better at higher, or customizable. That's been a nice improvement. It's nice to have blasters that you can quickly spring swap and put in different barrels. That didn't used to be the case like years ago, but everyone loves their pump action Springer topics. All Epic 2592. Competitive Nerf is going to have the same toxic culture as Speedsoft and competitive paintball. It's going to? You mean it hasn't happened already? Mantic 3. In Nerf competitions, all prizing should go to categories like Best Sportsmanship, Best Improved, Most Unique Loadout. Placing is its own reward, and I think incentives to reduce toxic attitudes and encourage those who stand out in positive ways is important. Here's what I gotta say. I think competitive Nerf is growing, and that's really cool, but it has an identity crisis. Is it the same as casual Nerf, cool, laid back, where we should reward people by playing as the incentive? Like, you're having fun, that's your reward. Cool, I mean, I have no problem with that. Or is this an actual competition that basically is only going to see the best players and the best gear, the best tactics rise to the top? I know some people will say, well, what do you mean? It's all of that. We can do all of it at once. I disagree. I mean, if we're going to really have competitions, we're going to see some people not happy about what happens to this hobby. You're going to see some people who really think they like competitive Nerf not want to play competitive Nerf. I think the bad news is that toxic play is already here. And it's not just relegated to competitive play, but it always comes out strong in competitive play, and anytime there's prizes there, you will see it. Granted, those will be when it comes to physical prizes and monetary, cash prizes, but it doesn't need to have like prizes for it to rear its ugly head, and I've noticed some behaviors in myself that I'm not proud of when it comes to competitions. And, the things of like, being nervous for the game and whatnot, that's fine. That's part of a competition too. But I think there are some people who are looking at competitive Nerf right now in a very soft light and not seeing the reality that if competitive Nerf wants to be taken more seriously, it's gonna take some hard decisions and it's gonna take a lot of investment. If we don't want to have those kinds of competitions, then I think we need to reevaluate what a Nerf tournament looks like. When it comes to standardizing what competitive Nerf is, we are all over the place. And some people take it way more seriously already, and I think those ideas are just going to risk clashing as well. Vedran Lusev 1837. Hot take, full lengths are good, bring back full lengths is not a hot take, but a majority opinion. All right, full length dart enthusiasts, this is your time. Tax consumer. Playing stock or just end strike is more fun than high FPS in most cases. Bulkhead Bry, 100 FPS games is way more fun than anything above 100. If others find that fun, good for them, but I like closer engagement ranges. And Excelsior Time, hot take, darts don't need to be firing at over 120 FPS to be fun. Angling and managing distance is part of the game, and not worrying about the high impact welts is nice. I agree, but this does really challenge the question, what is fun? And everyone's definition is a little bit different. See previous conversations. The games and the context does matter. If you're at a game where 200 FPS is the cap, then you're kind of just expecting to be using something that's more powerful. And plenty of people have fun times, otherwise we wouldn't be having those games. People like those high-powered Nerf games, and as someone mentioned already, that's good for them. And it shouldn't be a problem that people can host lower power games too. I get frustrated when I see people trying to skirt the lines or using a blaster where maybe the FPS cap isn't super established for a group or an event where, they just don't totally get it. Like, it's gonna be a Nerf battle, it's a Nerf war, bring something that's gonna be fun. And people are like, but can I bring my Nexus Pro? Can I bring my Nexus Pro X? It's like, you ever heard of Rule 0? Try to follow Rule 0. If you know that much about the game, there's a good chance you're gonna do just fine with something that's just below the FPS cap, even if it's at 100 FPS. There are plenty of blasters that can spit darts plenty far. They float, it's true. You'll float too. Those darts, they just have this little arc where you can launch them pretty far, and it's also okay to not leave welts on people. We can still have fun games that aren't even using half darts. Sometimes people, I know, I'm saying this out loud and people are like, well, yeah, no duh. Some people need a little bit of a reminder because all fun can exist at the same time. Strong Arm 11, hot take, full-length darts will always be better and more fun than half-length darts. Trainwreck 79, long darts are more fun to use at high FPS than short darts. And Super Lava Gamer, I want to see more companies make pro performance full-length dart blasters. Alright, so the truth about full lengths as well. Full-length darts are just more recognizable for wider audiences. Why didn't the Ace of Spades use half lengths? Because full lengths are just the Nerf standard for anyone that doesn't know more about Nerf. General audiences are very new to Nerf Pro, and spoiler alert, that's kind of the only thing they know about Pro. Maybe they've heard about these other companies making weird-sized darts, but they see now that Nerf's producing Pro blasters and I guess these things exist too. That's crazy. I mean, yes, I love that half lengths can take up less space on your body, but full lengths are really easy to, put into mags, to load. You know exactly when a full length is jammed or how to get it out, and half darts can sometimes really hide themselves in there. I think that full lengths should stick around, even if Nerf has a different definition of what that full-length dart is. I think it would be a shame to lose full-length darts from Nerf or any company for that matter. So here's hoping that Nerf doesn't follow through on that promise and that they actually do keep it in certain blasters. Linker, I want even stock FPS blasters to use short darts. They are just more flexible and fun. Flexible, like you squish full lengths a little bit more. You mean like more versatile. There are some really cool designs that people have made with half-length darts, and I can definitely see the argument there. You can, make the blaster more compact to work with half darts. I think it would be cool if Hasbro puts them into more blasters too. Safety, of course, willing. And closing with Robert Myth. Gatekeeping fun is keeping the hobby from growing. There's countless different ways to interact with Nerf modding, 3D printing, even those reloading videos that were popular for a while. New enthusiasts shouldn't be pushed away from the community just because they want to enjoy Nerf in their own way. If you're having fun, you're not doing it wrong. And this, of course, summarizes a lot of my points. I feel called out because I really do hate those reloading videos, but it's true. If people find the hobby through that way, whatever the journey, it's nice to have you here. It's great that you've found some enjoyment in this, and I hope you can continue to, and I hope that you can continue to develop what you like and what you don't like, and just, spend your money appropriately, or just spend your time appropriately. Time is also money. Within reason and your local laws, yeah, having fun shouldn't be scrutinized, and I think that because our entry points into the hobby are so diverse, I've touched on this already too, just some people get very fussy when they find Nerf in not the right way. Like if you found Nerf haphazardly and now you're asking certain questions because you just didn't happen to have those answered before you found out that Nerf modding exists and this pro scene exists and there are these events that happen. You're like, oh, wait, can I use this? What about that? And you happen to use that one wrong word, people will absolutely jump down your throat. And yes, that is how you gatekeep a hobby. And as best we can, we should avoid doing that and give people time to learn. It's okay. Everyone comes from a different background. And if people really want to be a part of this hobby, they will stick with it. And if they find it's not for them, that's okay too. We don't have to keep everyone if they find that they would rather play airsoft or paintball, or they would rather go play gel. I guess that's another way. That's okay. And with that, I want to thank you all so much for watching these episodes. Thank you for your holiday hot takes. I have been through so many of these, and it has very much challenged some of my ideas, and I hope in some cases it has challenged your beliefs as well. Remember, we have a hobby full of a diverse range of people, and they all have different opinions, and it's not always a bad thing for those opinions to clash, especially if we're talking about best ways to improve our hobby and make it a little bit more accepting. Happy holidays, everyone, and I'll see you next time. I am so hot. And it's not just the hot takes. I mean, it actually finally warmed up in here. Oh my gosh, I need to take this off.